Give a man a fish and he will eat for a day. Teach him to fish and he'll never go hungry again. This timeless saying is now a guiding principle for Rwanda's thriving fish farming industry. A decade ago, fish farming accounted for 0.33% of Rwanda's gross domestic product. Today, it's the fast-growing sector that's scaling up to feed a nation and drive economic growth, truly becoming the catch of the future. Aquaculture is among the fast-growing subsectors of agriculture in Rwanda. Currently, it employs over 40,000 individuals through the direct employment and about 200,000 people through the indirect employment path, while contributing 3% to the national gross domestic product, over 2.5% increase from a decade ago. To take this growth further, the country is investing in the fishing industry from the traditional fishing methods, boost productivity, and increase exports.
The concept behind Kivu Choice started all the way back while I was at business school in Stanford in 2019. So I actually did a class trip out to Rwanda, and during that trip I was inspired by the turnaround story of the country, and I was also inspired by the ambition and the vision of the leadership. So I felt like this would be a great opportunity to start a business in the country and contribute to the Rwandan success story. So then in late 2021, I came out to Rwanda to set up Kivu Choice. So in the last 3 years, we've scaled to over 300 employees. We're now harvesting 300 tons per month, so upwards of over 500,000 fish meals per month that we're distributing and producing. And we're also, at this rate, we're the fastest growing fish farm. The whole sector altogether contributed about 3,000 tons. So us as a single business now, 3 years on, we're larger than the total market size of the farmed aquaculture sector in Rwanda when we came into the market. So it's still very greenfields. There's a large opportunity, but the aquaculture sector in Africa is also still quite nascent. And so there's many markets across the continent that have still not been addressed and are still underdeveloped. Rwanda is changing now. There's a lot of investment going into the aquaculture sector here. We're not the only ones that have raised large amounts of capital to grow. There's also other players, including in the feed sector. So as we speak, the largest feed mill in the country has now diversified to set up a fish feed line that's going to be producing over 30,000 tons of fish feed per year, which by today's metrics would make it the largest in East Africa. So we've got a very optimistic future ahead of us in the Rwandan aquaculture sector. And as I said, the market is enormous, and so there's really a lot of space for many players to come in with large investments and be able to create very solid businesses out here.
To reach this journey in Rwanda's market, Kivu Choice has invested heavily in efficient fish farming techniques and products.
Well, the bulk of our investment actually comes out here to the lake. So this is where the bulk of our costs go. So every day we're feeding over 20 tons of feed per day. So that's roughly $20,000 of feed just being deployed in our cages out here. And then of course there's also the capex of the cages and the nets. That's really the largest segment of our cost structure. And it's also why cage farming is also, there's some barriers to entry. There is a cost barrier to entry. It is capital intensive to be able to get set up at scale.
The main costs in fish farming is food. The feed normally takes about 60% of the cost of the whole company. So, and it's always a big challenge accessing it. In Kivu Choice, we have our sister company, Victory Farm, and it has got a factory that is producing 4 mm feed, even 2 mm, 3 mm. But in Kivu Choice here in Rwanda, we only receive 4 mm from our sister company. The rest of the feed is imported from Egypt, from Zambia, and then from Kenya. So most of our feed is 100% imported almost. So that's why the challenge comes in. It becomes so costly because you have to add in the cost of transport, then some that may be importation, but we are lucky that Rwanda is exempting the feed, but it also becomes a bit expensive because you have to add in the cost of transport, which makes it a bit higher. So that's why we normally make sure at least when we are producing our food, our fish, the cost of producing it should not go beyond 1.4 because the cost is already expensive. So the main challenge that we have here in fish farming is the food. The feed is very expensive and then it comes from far. Minus it being expensive, also the timing for it to reach here. If you don't really make it, order it on time, it will create a gap in the system that you find you have a run out, you have to somehow cut the feed to be able to cover the gap that is created before the other one reach here. So that's where the problem comes in.
Along with the challenge of fish feed supply, the low oxygen levels in ponds require strategic investment for continued production and maintenance of quality for the hatchery.
For the hatchery, one thing I would say is our water source. It's not all that we wanted, but then we are making the best out of it. It's from the stream, which is sometimes very turbid, which is not good. But then that's what we have, and we are making the best out of it. So it also brings about low oxygen levels in the ponds. That one is pond related, it's not on the lake, you know. And then I think that's the major challenge we have in the hatchery side. It has to do with our water source.
Yet another challenge is to maintain the feed quality and size of the fish while reducing the size variation.
When we are feeding, we make sure we consider the right feed at the right size of the fish. So when we receive fish at Kivu Choice, we receive fish from our hatchery at 1 gram on the side of the lake, and the 1 gram fish, we make sure we feed it at a right feed, which is 0.5 with the right crude protein, and the crude protein is we feed it at 40%, at least 40%, not less than 40%. Why we do 40% is because it is of good, high nutritional balance to make sure the fish is well balanced, attaining the right feed up to when it is supposed to change the fish, the feed type. Then from 0.5, we move the feed to 1 gram, 1 millimeter feed, and 1 millimeter feed we give it to the size when the fish has at least reached 3 grams. The 3 gram is, of course, we sample or we see with our eyes that this fish is ready for moving into another size of the feed. So as at every stage of the fish, it has got accessed the right feed type. So we keep on changing the feed according to the size of the fish, and then we go to 2 mm. 2 mm is at 35 crude protein feed. 2 mm fish feed it up to about 70 grams, and then we also change the feed to 3 mm, which is around 32% crude protein. We feed that up to around 150 grams, and then we bring in 4 millimeter. So each size of the fish keeps on changing according to the crude protein value, and then the size it is at, and also considering the size of the mouth of the fish, if it's able to swallow that pellet size of the feed. That's when we can be able to make sure our fish does not grow with a lot of size variation. It's able to grow at the same stage up to when it is being harvested.
Once they reach the table size, market size for harvest, we send the harvesting team to go and harvest, and then we bring it on the shore, and then the processing guys on shore also do sort the fish into various sizes, size 1, size 2, size 3, size 4, all the way to 1 kg size, so that everybody can get the size that you want, that you can afford.
So at Kivu Choice, we normally consider harvesting fish not less than 400 grams. We consider 400 grams because we want every family, in 1 kilo, every family to have got at least a fish. If you make it bigger, then it means it's going to be a bit costly, and then people will not be able to access enough fish within 1 kilo. So we consider 400 grams and above, so as is able to balance the family requirements or family needs. Those that can be able to cover those with the low costs, those who have less money, they are able to also access the so many fish within the kilo. And then when we are feeding, we also mind about the food conversion ratio, which is the FCR. Our FCR is the one that determines when we are feeding. You make sure at least when you're feeding, you don't to give so much feed, because you go beyond the cost the fish is supposed to be at. So that's the feed conversion ratio. So our target here is not more than 1.4, which is 1.4 kilogram of feed to produce 1 kilo of food. So that's our target. So we make sure we balance the feed quality, the feed size for the fish, and then be able to reduce any size variation, then can be able to attain our FCR that we are targeting.
And then during that operations, the entire value chain, there are few things we do to make sure our operations are intact, in terms of working on our nets to make sure our nets are clean, changing them regularly. And another very important part of it is, we are doing this on the lake on a large commercial scale. We have to know what is happening under the water, because our nets are in the water. So we have divers. I'm also in charge of the diving team, which are the scuba guys, who also go down to make sure our nets are what? They don't have any hole, because the wave actions can create holes in the nets. So once we see them, we patch them under the water so that the fish don't escape, because that's our, the whole process is fish. So if they escape, we are running at a loss.
The scuba diver no muri Kivu Choice doko dukoresha imyuka tujya hasi. Akazi kacu kaba ari ukurinda amafi muri net. Nkuko mwayibonye, izi cages zikozwe n'imiraga, kandi iyo miraga yacu rimwe na rimwe hari ibikoko biba mu mazi biza kuyangiza, ibyo bita amasonzi n'ibindi bita inzibyi. So icyo tuba dushinzwe rero ni ukujya hasi mu mazi, twaza kureba ahantu ayo masonzi cyangwa se izo nzibyi zishobora kuba zarariye. Aho hantu rero ziba zarariye, iyo tugezeyo tuba dufite imigozi yabigenewe, duhita tuhadoda hagasubirana neza. Iyo tugiye hasi tubasha guspendingamo cyangwa se tukamaramo byibuze hejuru kuva hejuru y'isaha kugera ku masaha 2 turi hasi mu mazi dukora, duhumeka neza nta kibazo, kuko iyi tanka nambaye haba harimo bari 200. Izo bari 200 rero, izo bari 200 zo tujyana mu mazi, tuba dufite isaha itwereka igihe turi kumaramo. Ahangaha kuri iyi nuza nayo tuba dufitemo icyo bita pressure gauge, tuba tureba umwuka dufitemo ndetse n'usigaye. Ubwo umwuka ugiye gushira tuba tubibona tukazamuka.
The decision in Kivu Choice's approach to fish farming has put it in a dominant position in the Rwandan agriculture market and has allowed the company to cut down the cost of animal protein with its innovative farming technique.
The reason why we do what we do is that when fish farming is done right, it presents the opportunity to produce the most affordable protein in any market that we enter into. So across our branch network, we're slashing the prices of animal protein by anything from 25 to 50%. So we think that as far as the initiatives to alleviate stunting are concerned, Kivu Choice presents one of the most credible opportunities to help alleviate the nutrition deficit in Rwanda. And if our business continues to be successful here, then we have a model to then replicate across the rest of sub-Saharan Africa.
Back to when we started, I would say 2 years in operation at the moment, we are able to supply about 300 tons of tilapia at the moment. I would say we are the big fish at the moment in this industry because the market itself, the Rwandan market itself has really high demand of fish. As per statistics, we are consuming around 33,000 tons of fish per year. That presents the opportunity to grow and to multiply what we're producing at the moment. So what Kivu Choice is doing that is really helping us to win the market is the consistency we have to supply tilapia. We are not on and off in the market like any other players. We are supplying fish across the country.
And to make sure they remain consistent in their supply, Kivu Choice has also picked a key location for its core operations.
So the reason why we decided to set up on Lake Kivu in Rwanda is that it's actually a very strategic location for setting up a core farm site. You're in direct proximity to many core markets. So you're only a 5-hour drive away from Kigali, and then you've also got the Goma and Bukavu markets, which are also very large in their own rights, right next door. So it's just a matter of a few hours drive to each location to be able to deliver your fish. And so together these constitute significant markets, and they're also some of the most underserved in the East African region. So that was one of the big attractions for us here. The Congolese market is completely insatiable. We are barely producing enough to be able to supply even a fraction of what that market demands. And also with all the currency challenges that we've been having across sub-Saharan Africa over the last few years, having a dollarized economy right next door is very helpful for your business and generating some amount of stability. So right now, about half of all of our fish is sold into Congo, and we generate dollar revenues through that. And then the other half is sold into Rwanda. And in Rwanda, we sell through a combination of large volume traders, but we also have our own owned and operated branches around the country.
At the moment, yes, we are. Even though the demand is more, it's really huge. There are some who even want us to be giving them 10 tons a day. You know what I mean? That's huge, you know what I mean? But the strategy is to make sure everybody has a feel of our fish. If one person is just want to have it, that's not good. Before you realize he has monopolized the market and inflating the prices. We want to make fish very affordable.
As demand for fish grows in and around Rwanda, even financial institutions are taking an interest in the sector, with Bank of Kigali recently committing 5 billion Rwandan francs to the aquaculture industry.
So this is really a very historic partnership, I would say. I think it's one of the largest investments in Rwanda's agriculture sector to date, let alone its aquaculture sector. So it's a big bet by Bank of Kigali. on our business and the growth of the sector. So they see a lot of opportunity in Rwanda's aquaculture sector, and they see us as a partner that can credibly deploy that kind of capital. So up until now, we've deployed about $6 million to build out the operation to this level of scale. This next 5 billion francs is going to be able to help us build the infrastructure for scale. So we are now industrializing much of our operations through automation, through hydraulic crane operations. There's many other pieces that are involved in building a business that goes from 300 tons to several thousand tons. So now we're going to be investing in that capex and infrastructure in order to be able to continue to scale, which we'll be using from the investment which we'll be deploying from the investment.
And sharing this optimism with the sector is another Rwandan private company, Fine Fish.
Fine Fish is a fish farm company. We grow tilapia here in Rubavu in cages, what we call aquaculture. So it's a modern aquaculture. We do semi-intensive aquaculture. We started operating in 2015. Now it's almost 10 years in this sector. So we grow tilapia fish stocking. We start from broodstock. The broodstock are the fish that gives us the eggs. So after we collect the eggs, we put them in the hatchery, incubator hatchery, for 3 to 4 days. After hatchery, they took to the nursing pond. We have a greenhouse there. They raise them for 3 to 4 weeks. So we transport them here. We transport 0.5 grams to 1 gram. So after transportation, we put here in the cage. Our cages, we have different phases. The nursing cage, so we put the smaller fish from 1 gram or below 1 gram. So we grow them for 3 weeks. So after 3 weeks, we count them to see if the number we have just transported or received, to be sure the number we have in our cage. So after that, we grow them another 2 to 3 months. So after that time, we sort them, because as the fish they grow, with time we see they have differences in size. They don't grow on the same size. So the importance of sorting the fish is just to have the fish with the same size, they go together and they eat together. Because if the small fish eat with the big fish, it cannot eat well. It is like disturbing them. They are competing for the food, and as we show you, when we put the feed in there, they just come to take them. So that's why we sort them. This one are the same size. They can just eat together. They can grow together, and they go to the markets together. So after that, we grow also another 2 months. So for the market size, I think it takes to 8 to 10 months to harvest.
Rwanda's fishing industry thrives on Lake Kivu's rich waters, while local transport networks ensure fresh catch reaches Kigali markets and neighboring countries.
See, we are lucky because our farm is close to the lake. We base normally in Rwanda Lake. We have a lake, and most of the fish we serve in our restaurant come in the lake Rwanda. So we don't have a fish most of the time, and it depends on the season. And so it's two kind of type of fish we serve most of the time. And also sometimes we go to Bugesera. We search we find fish to the lake, they call it Lake Roero. And this is both lakes that we normally get the fish that we serve in the restaurant.
Tugatangira saa 12 za mu gitondo mu bijyanye n'uburobyi bw'aya mafi, tukahikiriza ku gihe ku mukiriya uko ashaka. Twe tworora amafi mazima, tugatanga amafi ajya ku isoko ari mazima, ntitanga amafi yapfuye.
The good thing with our restaurant, we don't have a menu. Our menu depend on the product we have on the day. If on the day we have 1 kilo, and we serve 1 kilo of the fish. I think the challenge you are getting now is the climate change. I think it's worldwide, and sometimes that was a time like in November, like October, November, we have a lot of fish, and now with the heavy rain, we are getting problem to like us and the fishermen are getting problem for getting fish.
Challenge duhura na challenge yo mu kwezi cyane cyane muri Muhazi. Iyo habaye mu kwezi kwa gatandatu kurangira tujya mu kwezi kwa karindwi haba habaye changement ya climat turnover. Hari gihe hagira gutya kubera turnover amafi akabura oxygen noneho agapfa. Nibyo byabaye.
Aka kazi uburyo nakajemo mu buryo bwo kwiteza imbere nk'abagore, kuko abagore benshi bakunda kwitinya mu buryo bwo gukora akazi kagendanye n'ingufu. Aka kazi dukora nta k'ingufu, ariko mu bijyanye no kwiteza imbere ntabwo tugatinya, niyo mpamvu tugakora. Average nafata mu bijyanye n'amafi, ingano nafata ku bwanjye nanjye ndi umurobyi, nanjye ibyo biro 700 nabiroba kubwo kwigirira icyizere ko nshoboye.
Hari ibintu byinshi tuvanga n'ama raw material atandukanye. Hari ingano, hari ibigori, hari indagara, hariho maize brand, hariho rice brand, hariho MBA. Noneho tukabivanga suivant na formule y'abana, formule izimaze gukuraho gato, formule izimaze gukura na formule izigiye kujya ku isoko. Batangiye dufite nk'abakozi 30, ariko ubu ngubu dufite abakozi barenga 140.
Icyo tureberaho mu buryo bwo gushyiraho igiciro ahanini tugendera uko ku isoko hanze no kuri to ya pourcentage y'amafaranga uko ameze. Ni ukuvuga ngo igiciro dushiraho ni kitabangamiye umukiriya kandi natwe company kitadushira mu gihombo.
And the market seems to be thriving despite hurdles through innovation and the dedication of Rwanda's commitment to the aquaculture sector, pushing the subsector to sustainably contribute to the nation's economy, one fish at a time.